Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, dear viewers. Welcome to another episode of Her Thoughts here on Imam Hussein TV. First and foremost, during these holy nights, we send our condolences to the Imam of our time and to all our viewers and the lovers of the Ahlulbait on the anniversary of the martyrdom of Amir al-Mu'mineen, Imam Ali alayhi salam. Ramadan has always been a month in the calendar that sticks out to us, like Muharram, Safar, and one of the things that we often try and do is get our families involved. In previous episodes, we've spoken extensively about how to get children involved in the love of the Ahlulbait and commemorating these events. But inshallah today we want to shed a little bit more light on how to get the youth involved and instill a love of the Ahlulbait in their hearts as well. So without further ado, I'll welcome my wonderful co-host, Sister Fatima, Sayyida and Sister Zahra. Assalamu alaikum. This time of year and this time of month particularly, very much like the first 10 days of Muharram, is a time where our relationship almost gets reignited and that love kind of just brings a spark into our heart for Amir al-Mu'mineen. So as women, what lessons can we personally take from him? And personally for you guys, what stands out about him to you and what do you really, really take to heart?
I think there's so many humbling qualities about Imam Ali alayhi salam. It's very difficult to often choose, whether it's how he was with Bibi Fatima alayhi salam, his relationship, how he helped her as well in the house, how they've been described as two doves in a cocoon, and you know the beautiful relationship that he had with Bibi Fatima, or whether it's father of the orphans. And how we are constantly telling our children, the youth, sadaqah, charity is so important, especially in this day and age. So whether it's father of the orphans or even his knowledge, his courage, his strength, his patience, there's so many qualities. To pick out one would be difficult, but I think his relationship with children and his relationship with Bibi Fatima, I think something that's what stands out for me.
Absolutely.
I think for me what stands out is the fact that he was very courageous in war, and he defended the religion and he fought in many battles, but at the same time he had this soft side to him. And I feel like many people, when they go to battle, when they go to war, they tend to become really what's the word? They become very hard-hearted and they're just not as soft, like you said, with family, with people. Everyone found him as an inspiration. He was both fierce in battle and soft with the people, and he can understand both situations, which is really nice to have such a quality.
That that reminds me of, for example, on his shahadat, when he was hit by Ibn Muljim, how he even treated Ibn Muljim afterwards. Says, I believe he said, no, give him water still.
Everything he ate, he would give to Ibn Muljim. It was like that.
By the Lord of the Kaaba, I have succeeded, but he still was very fair towards Ibn Muljim, which just shows his character.
Absolutely.
Definitely, yeah. Firstly, condolences to all the viewers and to the Muslim Ummah on the martyrdom of Imam Ali alayhi salam. What really stands for to me is that, especially in this generation, I feel like people really try to establish gender roles where men are always outside and they do not contribute in the home. And especially back in our countries and our culture, men have a non-existent role within the household. And when you see Imam Ali, well, now in this day and age, it's not seen masculine if you help within the household. And I think that is an element that really needs to be changed within society, because Imam Ali alayhi salam, although he had a huge role outside the house, when he came home, he still helped his wife. He still contributed to the domestic chores within the house. And I think that is a quality that our men do not have or are not encouraged to have. If you do any domestic chores within the house, then it's seen as not masculine. Or so I think it's beautiful, because when you look at the lives of Imam Ali and Fatima Zahra, both of them had roles outside the house and both of them had roles within the house. They both worked together to raise the children and to maintain the house, and that is a beautiful quality. Imam Ali was absolutely courageous and brave and very active outside the home. But I think helping your wife is not a thing to be ashamed of. It doesn't demasculate. So that's one quality. Another one is speaking up when you see injustice taking place. Absolutely. I think many of us do not speak up, and we do not have that quality within us. And we try to stay quiet or not get involved. But Imam Ali alayhi salam showed that when you see injustice, you stand up and you speak. when you see injustice taking place, and the same with Fatima Zahra alayhi salam. So I think that is something that we can really take from him.
Absolutely, like very much like you guys, one of the things that stands out about him to me so much is just these really contrasting qualities that he had, because like you said, Fatima, someone who's such a ferocious warrior on the battlefield, you would never in a million years expect them to then go and look after orphans or play with children or help around the house. And likewise, the other way around, usually when you hear, like, unfortunately in our cultures, sometimes when you hear about a man like, you know, helping his wife out in the house or doing things like this, you would then never associate him with being, you know, so powerful outside the house. And Zahra, one of the things you highlighted right now, actually, when we were talking about this whole helping at home thing, is the disconnect between a lot of our cultures and religion, which brings me nicely onto an email that we've received from our viewers, and I think this will tie in with a lot of what we're talking about. But one of our viewers says, Assalamu alaikum, wa alaikum assalam. I'm a mother of 3, ages ranging from 15 to 6 to 15, I think. I always tried my best to instill the love of the Ahlulbait into the hearts of my children. However, with my eldest, I was never sure how much of the story of the Ahlulbait I should expose to him. When he was young, I didn't take him to majalis as much as I should have, and didn't explain the manner in which the Ahlulbait sacrificed their lives for the religion. As he grew older, I felt like he didn't really have that much of a connection and only yearned for majalis during the 10 nights of Muharram. Do you believe that it is important to tell our youth the full story from a young age, and do majalis have an effect on the hearts of youngsters, or would you say it's more just for us adults? One thing that stood out to me from this message is when the dear sister, thank you for your email, says he has that passion during the 10 days of Muharram, which, you know, alhamdulillah for that. That's such a big blessing, such a big ni'mah. But it also makes me realise that a lot of us are guilty of culturally having this passion kind of reignite. It's almost like, and I'm by no means trying to trivialise tragedy at all, but a really shabby example would be, for example, when we see the Christmas lights go on, you're like, oh, it's Christmas and the sailor's coming, this is going to happen. And unfortunately for some of us, it has become like a yearly ritual. And it has its plus sides, because sometimes this is what it takes to ignite that flame. I guess what the mother's asking is, how do we expand beyond that?
I mean, she says, how much should I share with my child or my youth, or even as children? Some mothers always say, should we tell them the tragedies? Would it traumatize them? And I've said this before in our previous series, and I'll say it again. When I interact with other religions and other believers from the Abrahamic faiths, they have no problem telling their children that, for example, Jesus sacrificed himself on the cross, how he died on the cross. I mean, my kids are young and they go to a Catholic school and they know that Jesus, there was nails put into him, he was crucified, and they know that. But when it comes to our religion, many people feel like they have to not tell their kids how the Ahlulbait alayhim salam passed away, or how they were martyred, because being afraid that they may traumatize them. And I think we should always teach our kids the reality. We should teach our kids the history of Islam. There's no shame in that. Maybe there are different methods that we should teach kids. For example, reading to them books, stories. For last Ramadan, I'd done a series of storytelling of the prophets, and I spoke in a manner where kids really connected with that. So maybe it's about the way we tell the kids, but I think we should not hide anything, because many children that we have seen have grown up and said, why didn't our parents tell us the truth? Why did they hide elements of the truth from us? And even people from different schools of thought, they have come, I've seen them come, they've reverted to Shia Islam, they're like, why did our parents hide this truth from us? So I think we have to, it's our responsibility to teach our kids what happened to the Ahlulbait alayhim salam, how they were martyred, and do it in a manner which, you know, appeals to their age, but we cannot hide or eliminate the truth from them.
Absolutely.
I think, just picking up from that point, Zahra, it's very important to teach our children and youth that Islam as a religion is there for all generations, for all of us. Our imams, our prophets, the ladies in Islam are there for all generations. So when we talk about Imam Ali just in his wafat nights, we don't do enough justice to him. Even if we just take, for example, little examples of, we were talking about his qualities. So even, for example, he lifted the gates of Khaybar. our children should know about his strength.
Yeah.
He was so, you know, kind and loving to the young children that he would feed them with his own hands. So if we tell our children about these little qualities about our holy Imam, that love will automatically be instilled in the hearts of our youth, so that they will be yearning to learn more about Imam as well. And going back to how much do we tell them, it's very important to tell them properly, because you don't want, like you said, Zahra, a time will come when they are older, and when then they have got peer pressure and they've got other friends around them, you don't want anybody to influence them. They need to be so strong in their faith and in their beliefs that they know what our Shia Ahlulbait teachings are. Because especially we know in this day and age, we are a minority, and we don't want our children to ever feel like they have to question. So I think from day one, teaching them those qualities of our Imams, of our Ahlulbait, that will bring them closeness to them, that they will have this yearning to learn. And yes, teaching them in the correct manner. So for example, if you have a 3-year-old, the way that you teach the 3-year-old is going to be very different to how you speak to a 15-year-old or an 18-year-old. The way that they can digest that information is very different. So you have to tailor it according to each child and their special needs. But every child should be taught from a young age, this is what happened to Imam Ali, this is what happened to Imam Hussein, you know? Because if we don't teach them, who are going to teach them? And then you don't want them to then be influenced by other stories that they may hear, which is not the truth.
Yeah, it's like when you can really control your child so much when they're at home, but once they go to school, they're exposed to so much. Like I remember I was in a canteen in high school, and this girl came up to me and started speaking to me about different Shia beliefs. I don't remember exactly what it was, but she was asking me questions, and at the time, me being 16, I thought, okay, she genuinely wants to convert, and I was excited. But I realized later that the only reason she was asking these questions because she wanted me to have like some kind of doubt, or she wanted me to trip somewhere so she can, you know, tell me that I'm wrong or instill her own ideas on me. Which, if I didn't know, like I grew up in Majalis, 10 days of Muharram, even normal, I wouldn't say normal wafat, but wafat of like Imam al-Kadhim or Imam al-Rida, whenever there was a majlis, or even like a Mawlid, like the birth of the Imams, my mum would always take me, and I was always a very curious child, so I would ask tons of questions. So that really helped. So when I went, like when she asked me about the turba, I knew what to say to her. And even if I didn't, I went home and I asked, and then I went back to school and I was like, by the way, this and this and this. So it's very important that we teach from when they're at home, because once they grow up and they're in school, you know, they seek their own knowledge.
And it's precisely that what you said. If we don't lay the foundation, someone else will come and lay the foundation. And that's the thing. If there is a void, someone else will fill it. So we need to fill that void. We need to ensure that we build a very strong foundation for our kids from such a young age, that they understand the religion, they understand that we are Muslims and the different sects and the different elements of history that may differ to others, why we perform such acts, why we fast, why we pray on a turba, like you said. We need to teach them all this, because if there is any doubt anywhere, someone else will come in and inject their own
they're
ideas.
Looking for a crack. They just want to find something, and they just go.
The thing is that we also need to realize that our children, our youth, are growing up in a very different generation to when we grew up. And so, I mean, it was not as hard for us when we were young, and for our children it's now harder. And I feel as time goes on, it will become harder and harder. So you need to make them so sure of their faith that nobody can shake their faith. And it just starts from when you're nurturing them at home. So just talking about Imam Ali, the father of the orphans, we are so lucky to have him as our father. We are so lucky to have him as our protector. You know, and then slowly talking about his shahadat and how, you know, Ibn Muljim was such a coward because Imam Ali was so brave. He could not face him face to face, so he had to do it whilst Imam Ali was in sajda. And then also saying that how Imam Ali was so satisfied with everything that Allah, his decree, that he never once complained, and he was in pain for 3 days, yet he was still doing the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he was still, you know, when he spoke to Imam Hassan on his deathbed, talking about his will and how never forget the rights of an orphan, always give charity, and it just goes back to what you were saying, Zahra, in the beginning about oppression and how he stood up for oppression. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us numerous times in the Quran, and Hadith tell us so many times as well, stand up for oppression, be it small or be it large, be it against your next of kin or be it against your parents or family, because you will be accountable for this on the Day of Judgment.
Absolutely. I think one other thing to remember is, and Zahra, I think you touched on this, how, you know, to be transparent with our children, tell them exactly what happened. I think it's so important to remember that children haven't really developed the rational part of their brain yet. They are very much emotional. And I'll give you an example. I vividly remember the first time my mom told me the story of Sayyidah Ruqayya alayhi salam. And I think I must have been like 4, maybe 3, 4. But I, like, till this day, I remember where we were, I remember her telling me, and I just remember feeling really, really sad. And that stayed with me. And I think especially in our generation right now, we're very, you know, I'm not saying don't be rational and don't be intellectual, but with children, they are emotional. So tap into that. You know, don't think, oh, they won't understand, so I'm going to wait till, you know, they're a bit more clever so that I can rationalize this to them. Because sometimes emotion can be a really good catalyst to then draw them into the love of the Ahlulbait. Sayyidah, you mentioned how we are in a very different generation now than we were when us guys were younger. One of the things I feel that is so important is the language that a lot of our programs are in. And I remember, like, I'm very, very grateful to my mum for telling me these things in language that I understood, but I also remember going to majalis with her, not understanding a word, and I used to be like, why is everyone crying? Like, and I can't remember if it was my sister or a friend of mine, she was the same, and then she would ask her mum to, like, pinch her to make her cry so that, because she felt left out. But back then, like you said, I think we were a lot more accepting of just whatever was happening around us, but now in an era where we are being challenged left, right and centre about every little thing, and it's not just us as Muslims or followers of the Ahlulbait, but just any belief in God is being challenged. How important is it to have programs and majalis in English, especially, or whatever language is spoken in whatever country?
It's very important, and to be honest, it just goes back to how we as Shia minority, and in this day and age, our children in this generation, where people are constantly trying to shake your faith, you don't want your children to turn around and ever say that I didn't understand what I was being told. You don't want them to ever have to then feel like we didn't do justice to them learning as well. And so yes, I believe it is important to also teach the children in your own mother tongue as well, but start off in a language that they can understand, because they will never gain that connection. They will never get that love for Imam in their hearts if they're not understanding. And how do you expect our children to cry if they don't understand what they're listening to?
Yeah, I feel like now there are a lot of majalis in English, which is amazing. But one issue that I find is it's become very repetitive. And, you know, we do have a lot of events and stuff, but usually the speakers are the same, and they tend to just talk about the surface. I feel like they don't really dig too deep, which I think is something that must be changed, because, you know, to understand a majlis is something, but then as a youth that gets, you know, pretty bored pretty quickly, for it to be repetitive, I think that won't attract them as much. So we need to find, you know, other ways to bring them in.
I think, you know,
well.
Fatima, this goes back to the point that we made earlier, that Islam as a religion is a religion which is there for all generations. So there are so many topics that you can take from Imam Ali's life. Even if you take one characteristic about him and convert that into a topic which is there for today's generation. For example, we talk about courage and Imam Ali's bravery. Now, as a generation, or as generally as Shia Muslims, we need to be courageous in our speech, we need to be courageous in our beliefs, we need to be courageous in what we know and stand firm for our own justice and our rights. So turn around his characteristics into a current affair topic of today. Zahra, what you were saying about Imam Ali, Bibi Fatima. He would always help Bibi Fatima in the house. I believe he would, you know, wash his own clothes as well. And so turn that into a topic of today, how, for example, in society, often it's seen as the women's role to do the household chores and the man will go out and earn. But so turn it around, you know, learn from Imam Ali's life, so that I understand that, you know, sometimes when, for example, the majlises and the lectures, they get repetitive and our children then, you know, they lose their focus. But if you bring in a topic which is with current, then I think they will not only learn, and I think it's very important for them to be able to, if they question, we can answer them with a counteract answer, so that they know that, you know, Islam is not just a religion that was 1400 years ago. Islam is for not just for us, but it's for them, and it's for the younger children as well.
100%.
Yeah, and I would say, in fact, it's more important now to have programs in English than it was when we were growing up. The reason it is because of social media, is because of the advancement of media in general. For every voice that we have, or every program, or every lecture that we have about Islam, we have another 5,000, or shall we say 1 million other voices that are counteracting that lecture. So I think there was a study in America which said that the youth in America, the American teenagers spend more time online than they do sleeping. So so our teenagers are spending an enormous amount of time online, watching videos, watching opinions, watching people doing silly things, and I believe there is not enough coming from our community. We have, alhamdulillah, channels like Imam Hussein TV and other organizations which are producing content, which are producing lectures in English, but I think we need so much more, because there is so much more counteracting that. Not only that, it's not only about now of it being in our own language, it's about the methods that we portray the message, because now, as with advances on media, you know, people have become creative, so we need to use different methods to spread the message. We can do lectures, but we should do programs, we should do other short clips, let's say short animation clips, because now also people want fast information. There was a study that says people no longer watch a 1 hour program, they'd rather watch a 5-minute clip and get their information. So we need to change it up. We have to move with the time. If we don't, our youth will not connect with Islam. They will not connect. Just like we didn't, many of us in our generation didn't connect with the majalis because it was in a different language. Now many of the youth will not connect if we do not move with the methods in which information is being spread globally. So I think we are, alhamdulillah, like you said, there is so much coming from our community, there's so much speakers, there's so much programs, but we need so much more, and we need to change up the way that we spread the message, while also being modest, respectful, and doing it in a correct way.
And specifically, how important is it that women are also an active part of this?
Exactly, yes.
Because this is so bad of me, I feel guilty saying this, but when you were saying all this, in my head I just kept imagining like male scholars doing all this, and it just goes to show how deeply ingrained this
I can count every single female speaker in the Shia English world in my hand, probably. And the ones that do it regularly, or the active ones, because there isn't much. Every time I speak at a conference, they're like, do you have any other speakers? Is there speakers? There isn't much. And alhamdulillah, we're seeing more. You and Zahira, you've been doing it for years. Sayyidah, Fatima, mashallah, all the shows that she produces and everything that she does, documentaries. But we need to see more, and it is really lacking, because if we don't, our girls are going to turn to TikTok, people doing makeup tutorials and hijab, and that's what they would want to become. And that's why I said...
And that's what will fill the void.
Exactly. That's why I said my mum never showed her face at all for majority of her life, until she probably came to London, and she still would like do this when she walks around. But she recognises that we need to now become active, and we need to spread the religion. And obviously she has no problem putting my photos online, and I always say this, I put my photos on Instagram and online, not because I think that we're great in any way at all, but it's because I want the image of a abaya, of a woman, to be online, so that our youth, our young girls, can see a woman wearing a abaya, not just women wearing modest, fashionable, fashionista, what do they call them? Hijabinistas, fashionistas. That's all they're seeing, and that's what they would want to become. But we need to have representation of women in our own community, so that girls will be like, okay, I can wear an abaya and look and be part of society.
I think, you know, see, when a child is nurtured at home, yes, you need the mother and the father, definitely, 100%. But the initial learning, the initial nurturing, everything that those initial first few key stages come from the mother. And as you then, now we're in a generation of children who are looking at social media. Everything is very fast paced. And like you said, Zahra, you don't want the children to turn on TikTok or to turn on social media and look at the Instagram accounts, and the first thing they see is of a lady, without hijab, talking about today and how you should do your makeup and how you should dress. And to be honest, our young daughters especially are very impressionable at this age. Then you have peer pressure that fits in. So even if you have a girl who is doing hijab, and then, for example, people will ask her, oh, are you not feeling hot? Or you're fasting, are you not feeling thirsty? And this happens to my daughter as well all the time, especially in the summer months. You're fasting, it's hot, you're wearing hijab, you're doing PE outside. Are you okay? And my daughter's like, no, I am fine. But it's people who keep on questioning, and then you don't want those doubts to creep in. So as women, as mothers, as we are very key role, not just in the house, but in the community as well. Because we gel the house together, but we also gel the community together. And if we don't portray ourselves as, yes, we can be mothers, yes, we can be working women, yes, we can have our own hobbies, but yes, we uphold the hijab, and we can go out and we can speak and we can do everything within the realms and the, within the boundaries of Islam, but we're not boring as well. I think often our youth feel that, if you are wearing an abaya or you are going out and you're speaking, then you are so constrained and restricted. But they need to realize that, no, that's not the truth. We can do it as us four women. We can be strong, we can raise our children, we can help our younger siblings, and we can still fit in with the current generation, and we can still go out and teach as well.
Yeah, the problem I feel like is if a girl, if a Muslim girl goes out and stands out and speaks against something, she feels rebellious, which is not the emotion that should be going, through her. She shouldn't have to feel rebellious just because she spoke out. And I feel like even for girls that are, back to your point about TikTok, it's not even just the ones that are not wearing hijab, it's the ones that are wearing hijab, but in their own way. And they're making girls, feel left out. Like if you were to wear your hijab properly, you'd feel a bit weird, like, they'd look at you like, what's wrong with her?
You'll feel like a plain Jane.
So you would go there, the way that they are, and they make you believe that by speaking out you're being rebellious. So in their heads, like, it's just a constant battle that they probably don't even understand themselves, which is very, very sad to think, that we have to go through something like that.
We have come to the end of the show, sadly. It's flown by, and there is so much more that we could continue saying about this topic, inshallah, another time. Thank you so much to all our viewers and to you guys as well for an amazing show, and thank you for tuning in. Inshallah, we'll see you on another episode of Her Thoughts. As always, if you want to send in any thoughts, our email address is herthoughts@imamhussein.tv. We'll see you in the next episode. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.